Greetings, viewers, and welcome to On the Spot. I will be your host for today. My name is Aleta Shikololo, and today we are honored to be joined by the newly appointed Minister of Justice and Labor Relations, Mr. Fillemon Wise Immanuel. Mr. Immanuel is a legal and governance expert. He recently served as the company secretary at the Namibia Students Financial Assistance Fund. And Mr. Immanuel, thank you for having us and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you for coming by, and you're welcome.
Minister, before we get into the more serious discussion, could you kindly just briefly tell us about your upbringing? What kind of environment did you grow up in?
I would describe myself as a rural boy. I grew up in a rural setup, in a village called, Onaruhaka in Nihandira, district, Umtere constituency to be specific, of Oshkoto region. So that's where I grew up. Partly, I have also spent a substantial amount of time, in Ongwediva, because I have started my primary school around that area at International Primary School. That was just grade 1 up to grade 2, and then thereafter I then moved to the village, at a school called Amen Primary School in Onihandira village, Omtere constituency of Oshkoto region. That's where I did then my grade 3 up to grade 7, and then I spent 1 year for grade 8 at the Kangolinene Combined School before again going back to Ongwediva at Mweshipandeka High School.
When you were at Mweshipandeka, what type of a young boy were you at that time? Maybe you can just briefly take us through your journey.
Maybe before I speak to my high school life, I should speak of my primary school life, particularly at the Amen Primary School, where I think the attendance of the school wasn't easy, because by then I think we were dividing our time between, attending school as well as looking after, our livestock or the livestock of our parents. As you know, the northern part of the country is one of the area or section of the country that gets to be stricken by drought. And quite often, as rural boys, we are sent, to various places with livestock in search for better grazing. And, I went through the same hardship, where we were sent to Ombuga most of the time to spend times with the livestock or looking after the livestock, and you then have to come from there also to attend school. And most of the times we actually attended school, on the back of horses, coming from Ombuga, at the cattle head, going to school, and you are on the back of a horse to make sure that you get to school on time, and after knocking off, to make sure that you reach the cattle post also in good time, and be able to return to school again the following morning. So that has actually been part of my growing up. I think also then being at a primary school, I had a privilege that when I went to Amen Primary School, I had spent few days at few years, about 2 years at International Primary School, and I had then understood or got a grasp of the importance of speaking English. At my primary school then, I had an engagement with the teachers, and I have indicated to them the importance of speaking English at school, so that at least we could become conversant. And as a result of that proposal, I think the teacher then, bought into the idea, a compulsory, the school then introduced, an order that compel learners to speak English only, during the school lessons. And anybody that could speak Oshindonga during the school time, that person had to face, to face some punishment. I had an opportunity also, of course, being a class captain ever since, and also led the debating club at the school, and I have been doing that, from primary school. And then when I went then to grade 8 at the Kangolinene, I also tried to advocate the same, to be introduced at the school. And then when I moved to Mweshipandeka, I think I then joined at least a fraternities of learners that were quite more conversant in English than most of the people that were coming from primary school. I think at Mweshipandeka, I then gotten an opportunity also to join the LRC, the Learners Representative Council. I was first responsible for academic affairs, and eventually I then became a head boy. I think my political activism started at high school. I think around 2001. 2001, I think our then former principal, had to leave the school, but it was really under a crowded circumstances. We had to organize, or I had to speak to my fellow learners, and we had to to organize ourselves really to show some dissatisfaction with the manner in which he was leaving the school. I think subsequent to that, we then organized ourselves, and I attempted then, to set up also a branch of the Swapo Party Youth League in the school, and that led almost to my suspension from the school by the school board. But luckily, there was a swift intervention by the then secretary of the Youth League, Comrade Palace Kapia, as well as the then regional coordinator of Oshana region, Raste Sutoni, the former minister of local government and housing, as well as the then inspector of education, under which Mweshipandeka fell, or still fall to now, Mr. I forgot his name, but I think I would, if I remember, I will return to it. Bezaidenhout, yes, Mr. Bezaidenhout. So those three intervened, and as a result, then the decision that was taken to get me out of school was then reversed, and I continued until then. I finished in 2002.
You quite have an interesting story to tell, and since childhood or your high school years, what has been your ultimate vision? Has governance, legal affairs, and leadership always been your goal, or you had a different vision back then?
Well, I don't think back then we had such things as visions. We were told is that we need to go to school and we need to learn how to read and write. And eventually, as you then get to know how to read and write, you may stand an opportunity of getting, tertiary education and be able to get a better job for yourself. That is really the preach that we got, from our parents then. There wasn't such things as a vision. In fact, I think the only things that most of us knew at the time was either being a teacher or being a nurse. And that's really what we were striving to achieve eventually, if we get through the school system successfully.
If the goal at that time was mostly to become a teacher and a nurse, how did you get into law?
So it became a little bit more clearer that there were more career options than just being a teacher and a nurse. And I remember vividly that one of my elder cousin at the time was then studying law at the university. That's Hilka Kandali Alberto. She was then studying law at the university, and at times when we meet for holidays and so forth, she was telling us, or she was always telling me how good it is and what law was about. And that's really when I developed an interest, in law. But I must indicate that getting to the university initially when I applied, law was not necessarily my first choice. I applied at the university and I wanted to do medicine. So I had to change to law, due to the financial assistance that I had gotten at the time, which was limited to, which was open to any other course other than medicine. And that prompted me actually then to change, initially when I changed from what I wanted to study initially, I enrolled for Bachelor of Economics, and then I think in my third year of economics, I then perused through the University of Namibia admission policies and prospectus, and I found that one was actually allowed, if you can get the permissions of the University Senate to do dual registration. I then capitalized on that provisions of the university policy, and then I registered for law while I was also then doing economics at the same time.
And just to take you back, you once mentioned that your political activism started in high school, and you were once upon a time also the president of the University of Namibia. So do you think that experience or that political experience has shaped the person you are today?
I would say yes. But as I was doing all those things, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to anything. The mere calling was the service to others. I simply wanted to be in service to others. I would come to a place and I would realize that there are some issues that needed to be resolved, and I would raise to the occasion. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what were some of the defining moments that propelled you from these roles to becoming the Minister of Justice? The roles over your career, having been in economic planning, governance, and legal affairs, and also corporate leadership.
Well, apart from my student and youth activism, because as I've indicated, I have been an SLC I have been a head boy at high school. I then became SLC Academic Affairs at the University of Namibia. I then eventually became SLC President at the University of Namibia, and I had an opportunity of serving, as the, as a leader of the Swapo Party Youth League branch at the University of Namibia, and eventually also serving in the district executive of the Swapo Party Youth League in Windhoek West. I was then eventually appointed also as the National Assistant Secretary for Information and Mobilizations by the current Prime Minister Dr. Eri Yangurare, when he was the Secretary of the Youth League. So when I eventually graduated, or when I then started my professional career as well, I started it in a political office, because I started, as a regional development planner under the Commerce Regional Council, which is quite partly a political environment. And as a regional economic development planner, I was primarily responsible, for coordinating for the coordinations of the strategic planning for the region, identifying projects that need to get priority and all those types of things. I have been in that role for roughly about 8 months, and then I moved to the University of Namibia, where I then took up the position of head student leadership development and student support, which again just brought me to where I started interaction with the student. And in that role, I was then responsible for scouting for talent, identifying students with potential, encouraging them to take up roles in the student leadership, and coordinating their mentorship program, coachings, and just character development initiative, through which a number of people went through. And it gave me really the greatest pleasure to want to serve more and see people that you have helped to discover themselves becoming useful members of the society. After that, I was then deployed to the School of Medicine as the head of the campus administration. And I'm glad that the development and the standing of the School of Medicine as it is now, it carries my signature, because we started that campus from the scratch, and I was then responsible for ensuring administrative efficiency in the running of that specific campus. That includes ensuring that procurement is in place, and contractors were supervised to ensure that they complete their contract work in good time. After that, it's when I then left, for the Namibia Student Financial Assistance Fund, to take up initially as the position of company secretary and manager corporate affairs. That position later then translated into the executive governance, legal services and company secretariat. And that's the roles that I had, up to the 22nd of March 2025. In that specific role, as you know, I was primarily responsible for the legal issues for the legal issues of NASFAF, for governance in general, making sure that the board of directors are capacitated, they are supported in every possible ways in order to be able to govern the institution, and to then ensure the statutory compliance within the institutions. And part of that is then including providing legal advice as well as, to the board as well as to management. In addition to that, I think I have served in a number of board, and I have led a number of reform. I was a member of the then Tender Board of Namibia, where I was part of the committee, the technical committee, that spearheaded the repealing of the old law to the current Public Procurement Act. I have also then served until recently in the review panel under the Ministry of Finance that was responsible for reviewing, dispute, of tenders or against tenders from either the Central Procurement Board or public enterprises. I have served in the, on the Namibian Qualification Authority Council. I have served on the Council of the University of Namibia, on the Senate of the University of Namibia, back then as SLC Academic Affairs and President, respectively.
And you have mentioned that on the 22nd, that's when you resigned from your position as an executive for governance and legal services at
course, I had to effect it I think Monday the following week, because as you know, the 22nd was over the weekend. So yes, the resignation had to be tendered the following week.
Yeah, so was it the same day that you were appointed as the Minister of Justice and Labor Relations?
As you know, I was sworn in as a Member of Parliament on the 22nd, that's Saturday morning, and that the afternoon of the very same day, I then received another news that I am appointed as Minister of Justice and Labor Relations.
Can you just recall that exact moment when you were informed that you are going to be part of President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah's cabinet? What was your exact reaction?
Well, I think the communication came in two parts. The first part was merely that the president has decided to nominate me as one of her 8 appointees to the National Assembly. And then it ended there. So at that particular point in time, I simply felt that, look, I am going to Parliament and I'm going to, to contribute to the legislative agenda, through debate in Parliament. That's what I felt. And I then asked myself questions, but am I ready? And then I answered myself again that why not? I think I am. What is that I do not know? And I then accepted the nomination or to be part of the 8 presidential appointees.
And this is your second week in the office, and at the end you have mentioned that you're ready to take on the responsibility that you're given. So what is your vision for this ministry, or what are some of the key reforms you intend to pursue in the next 5 years?
Okay. Centrally to my occupation for this office is to lead the national legislative agenda, making sure that laws are drafted with speed for enrouting to Parliament, making sure that laws are reformed, and those that have become obsolete are also probably then repealed if there is still any. I am cognizant of the fact that my predecessor have done a repeal to a number of obsolete laws, but I'm saying, should there be any other that is hindering the social economic development advancement, then those ones need to be repealed and rendered ineffective. Also I am expected to ensure access to justice, or to an enhancement to access to justice, by initiating a number of initiatives and put them into force. We need to strategically expand the establishment of community courts in various under various traditional authority is a way of widening access to justice. As you know, that community court really aid and help in reducing the burden or the backlog in the magistrate court, and so forth and so forth. We are also expected to ensure that we explore the possibility of establishing the small claim court, among other things. And you may have picked up as a journalist that there are amendments to the Public Procurement Act, and thereunder we are also envisioning or envisaging the establishment of procurement court, public procurement court, so that cases that are coming from the tendering processes or tender-based processes, they are then referred to a specialized court called the Public Procurement Court. That would also then ensure that we reduce the burden on, in the High Court.
And also regarding the measure of the justice mandate with labor relations brings together two critical but distinct portfolios. So how do you plan to effectively juggle these responsibilities, ensuring that both sectors receive the attention and strategic leadership they require?
I have heard of some, pedestrian conversations around the issues of, regarding the merging of justice and labor. But it's really a non-issue. If you look at it in a much more logical fashion, you will soon realize that justice and labor are one and the same thing, because the employees or laborers are seeking justice. Most of the cases that we have at the Labor Commissioner are cases by workers or employees who are pursuing justice, except that it is from an industrial perspective. Justice, on the other hand, it's what it is. It's about making sure that people are treated fairly, and with dignity, and in so doing, they are provided with opportunity to be heard, or they bring their side of things, and then ensuring that there are laws and regulatory framework that regulates the conduct of each and every citizen, which in any event, it is what labor relations is about at the end of the day. When employees are complaining about being underpaid, when they complain about unfair labor practices at workplace, when they complain about not having safety gears at factories and at mines and all those types of things, it's a voice crying for justice. Hence, in my view, pulling the resources together, having the integrated coordinations and approach toward the resolutions of or the handling of labor cases toward justice is better off when you have one portion there and the other there, and they are being handled differently. I think bringing them under one roof, for me, will probably give us efficiency gain.
And just towards the end of the 7th Parliament, the former minister Yvonne Dowsap had proposed for the amendment of the Ombudsman Bill, and at the center of this bill was the autonomy of the Ombudsman Office. However, it was at a later stage withdrawn. So now, as the Minister of Justice, are you going to table that bill, or are you going to pursue the amendment to the Ombudsman Bill?
We are going to inform ourselves as to the reason as to why it was withdrawn in the first place. And as once we have then familiarized with ourselves, once I have familiarized myself with the reason as to why, that will then inform our next course of action.
So, Honorable Minister, you have played quite an instrumental role in the SWAPO think tank, policy development, and also the election processes. How has your involvement in these structures influenced your leadership approach and decision-making as Minister of Justice and Labor Relations?
I think my involvement in the SWAPO party think tank, as well as in the SWAPO party electoral process, it simply just made me a scholar of the SWAPO party's ideology, business processes and system, as well as political program. it exposed me to those things, giving me a better institutional understanding of the party, how it works, where it came from, and what is expected of it going forward, or or how it positions itself at the present, and how it intends to position itself in future.
And we are almost at the end of the interview. And the second last question is, how do you want the Namibia to remember you in this office?
I think I want Namibia to remember me simply as a reformer, who has offered himself again in service to others.
Talking about being a reformer, there's a slogan or a mantra that you normally say, reforming by reasoning. I know it's self-explanatory, but could you just tell us what it means to you?
The mantra reforming by reasoning, it basically means that we don't have to be forceful and anarchist in bringing about reform. That reform is a process that requires conversation, and it needs persuasive reasoning, so that we then still the heart and the mind of the listeners. So that's basically what it means, that we need to have to reform through conversation, through dialogues, through engagement, and through consultation.
And Minister, just before we conclude the interview, do you have just your last words to the public?
I think my last word to the public is that the expectations of Her Excellency, the President of the Republic of Namibia, Dr. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, is that we must reignite, our approach towards service delivery, and as such, in the new dispensation, we are expected to be proactive and make sure that we give genuine service to the citizens of this country.
Thank you so much, Honorable. And to the viewers, that was Honorable Minister of Justice and Labor Relations, Mr. Fillemon Wise Immanuel. Thank you for listening.